You're listening to the Spark Report. John W. Davis and Pavy. What's going on, Pav? How you doing?
How you feeling, man? How you feeling? When was the last time we did one of these?
Oh, I think it was February. And
It was
the
February?
streets, aka Twitter. Yeah, February. The streets, aka Twitter, is asking for it. So
Jesus,
somebody asked me, they said, when's the next Spark Report
it's
coming?
really been that long?
I think so.
Jesus.
Yeah,
That
because think
makes
about
sense.
it. Because
Yeah.
we normally do them in person.
Yeah.
And then March, no.
No.
April, no.
No. May.
May,
Wash.
no.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
June, we're just in the middle of it. So I
fair.
think it was February-ish.
Fair. Makes
But man,
sense.
a lot of stuff going on with the WNBA. I'd like to talk about the Sparks Final 12 on the roster. We got some new players. The WNBA is looking at having basically playing on one site. But I think the most important thing we should talk about right now is a conversation we had with Tierra Ruffin Pratt
Great
the other day when
conversation.
she talked about social justice
Mm-hmm.
and what can be done to improve relations between the community and police. And she talked about police brutality, but she specifically told her story that you and I were familiar with
Yeah.
about her cousin
Mm-hmm.
being killed by an off-duty police officer, off-duty deputy, that is, in 2013,
Yeah.
and how that affected her family, how they had to wait for him to be arrested, how they had to
Yeah.
wait for conviction, and how they weren't necessarily satisfied with their cousin's killer or their loved one's killer getting 6 years as opposed to life in prison, which they felt like it would have happened if it was the opposite way.
Yeah.
If the cousin would have killed the cop, they feel
Of
like it would have
course.
been life.
Of course.
So, and you and I were talking, and she didn't really have the answers. And I said
As
that
does
that's
nobody.
okay.
Yeah. As does anybody.
Right. And I said that's okay that Tierra Ruffin Pratt doesn't have the answers. I just think it's great that she's willing to talk about it and willing to talk about it at length.
Yeah. Especially
Because
I mean, for me, it's especially for her, because it's a situation that's, I think it's sensitive to, all of us as African Americans, but especially when it touches you because it's really happened to your family. I think we're all sensitive to it because it could be any one of us, but when it's happened to somebody in, your family, that means you have, firsthand knowledge of really what it's like. We're kind of just, I don't want to say assuming what it's like, but kind of assuming what it's like because we've never, went through those court proceedings. We didn't get those phone calls. We didn't have that moment with our family, that, our loved one was taken away from us at the hands of the police. So the fact that she was willing to lend her voice and provide some insight upon a situation, I think was very powerful of her because she didn't have to do that. Obviously, it's probably a traumatic experience for her every single time she goes back and talks about it. I'm sure it brings up certain kinds of emotions. So shout out to
it's very
your people
emotional.
doing that.
Yeah. It's very emotional for her. And just to add a little bit more perspective, so we all have that, or I won't say we all, but a lot of people have that family member who is a cousin, but is more like a sibling to them.
Yeah.
That's who this person was to her. Okay.
Yeah.
They're born a month and a day apart. And when he died, he was 22 years old, and he died on the night that TRP, as an undrafted rookie, made the Washington Mystics. When she found out I made the team, I didn't even get drafted, but I made the WNBA, which we'll probably talk about a little bit because it's pretty much impossible to be an undrafted rookie and make a team. Because as we saw, pretty much everybody in the second and third round got cut, and they didn't even have training camp this year. So on that night, when you find out that, she did it, and it's for the hometown team, Alexandria, Virginia, where they grew up. She went to the school T.C. Williams, the school that's featured on Remember the Titans. That's her school.
That's crazy.
So
that's actually,
and
that's
to play for the hometown right. So and that's the school that Julian Dawkins, her cousin, went to as well. They're both graduates of that school. So to have all that perspective and to make your hometown team to be one of 144-ish players in the league, but you were undrafted and make that team, that's a night of celebration. And then to essentially get a call the morning after that your cousin, your brother, your best friend isn't there anymore, and then you start to learn details about it, That's heartbreaking. So that's why it's so emotional for her to talk about every time. So again, shout out to her for talking about it. And the thing she talked about was, yes, she didn't have all the answers, and that's okay. But she said, and this is my takeaway from it, she said that this is something that needs to be a constant conversation, that we can't let this die out just because there's no longer a curfew, or there's no longer a lot of protests, or there's no longer outrage that people haven't been arrested. Like, it's a constant conversation, and it's a lot of nuance to it. There's nuance to the fact that, she mentioned that she would love to see more Black people, men and women, step up and be police officers in their own community.
Yeah, I personally, for me, when the news kind of came down, I think one of the first conversations I had was that I would love to see more African Americans become police officers. Obviously, cops are gonna do what cops gonna do. So I'm not gonna say that like that's gonna solve every single problem, because it's not. But I think that a lot of it is, why are 4 white cops getting dispatched to any African American neighborhood to solve any disturbance? I just think that puts everybody on high alert. For one, they aren't from that community. So, it's like if you sent me in the middle of a cartel land in Mexico and be like, yo, go be a police officer. I'm going in there with all my prejudged, everything about the people who live there. And I don't really understand the language. I don't understand, the lifestyle. I don't understand what they're doing. I think that, and me, I've been pulled over. It's definitely a difference between when you see a Black cop and when you see a white cop. Granted, it's the police in general, so we all on high alert with the police in general. But a thought creeps in my mind when it's a Black cop, like, oh, they might be cool. And also, you think that at least they get me, they get our language, they get me a little bit more than what a white cop would. So I think I'm happy she said that, because we've been in this thing, for the past week or so. Everybody's like, F the police, F the police, F the police. And I'm happy that she said we need more minority African-American cops, men or women, because I genuinely think we do. And granted, I don't think that will save every situation and, completely switch everything. But if you could even save 1 life, 2 lives, on a daily basis, I personally think that's huge.
I personally think it will make a big difference, because when you're talking about life and death, when you're talking about shooting someone, this is a decision you make in nanoseconds.
Facts.
These are not premeditated murders where you've been thinking about it all day, all week, all month, and you're plotting and setting it up. This is like a split-second decision where if you have a different perspective, then you can come at it from, you can just take that breath, that pause, and then that's the difference between life and death.
I think a lot of these police officers get set in these communities and they're scared when they get there. I mean, obviously, and that's and that's on you. Like, you picked a dangerous job, so you got to be prepared for that. But again, I think a lot of them are scared when they get to these places. These are places that they've never hung out in. Not like they know people in these communities. They wouldn't be there if they weren't on duty. And they're scared. And they walk in there and they're getting trigger happy again because they're just scared. Like, they want to go home to their families too. And granted, this is not at all excusing it. I'm just saying that, again, I think having people who are in these communities, police these communities, who can look at these people as people, because I think a lot of the times, sometimes because they're scared, they don't look at them as people because they're so fearful. They're going off what, the media has portrayed about them or what they've been taught and not firsthand experience. So you're right. If you have people who are from the community, these are some of their friends, or like, well, maybe not these people in general that they're pulling over, but they have friends like that. They know about it. They know what's going on. They've been in the streets before, whether it would be, in high school, they might have had a friend who did this or things like that. I think I'm with you. I think it would make a huge difference. And again, even for the people who see the police, I think I can speak on this. I think that when you see an African-American cop, again, they're still the police. So you like, oh, it's the police. But there is that thought that creeps in your mind, like, oh, he might be cool, as opposed to you hop out, you see 4 white cops. It's like, whoa, what's this going on?
I agree with you. Again, shout out to TRP. We look forward to continuing that conversation with you, continuing the conversation with other players on the Sparks. TRP mentioned that she talks to NACA every day, and this is something that they talk about. I know that Simone Augustus has direct impact with Alton Brown in Louisiana, that case, that was where that happened outside of that store. That was a store that Simone Augustus frequented.
Mm.
Okay. That's like a neighborhood store for her. And you have Shanae Gumbake, who has become a public face on ESPN, and she essentially used a sports analogy and said that, comparing, when people say all lives matter compared to Black Lives Matter, she kind of compared it to saying that, Black Lives Matter is like, that's just saying, it's like being in a sports game where, you think it's even, but you're up 50, you start the game up 50 points with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
That was her analogy comparing.
Yeah, as far as this all lives matter, Black Lives Matter thing, I think that
I'm not trying to get into it. I was just saying that was a person who has used her platform to talk.
I just want to say this, like, one thing that I think that sometimes people take this thing of being pro-Black means anti-American or anti-white in some races, and no, it doesn't. It just means that you're proud to be Black and you want people to realize that, there are issues and we face a lot of issues and we want our lives to matter too. And that's all it's saying, is we want you to know that our lives matter too. It doesn't mean that we're saying these are the only lives that matter. We just want you to understand that, our lives matter too. Like, we should not be looked at as less than anybody else. And the fact that 6-7 years after we started, we'll still have this conversation with people are coming with the all lives matter. It kind of is like, I feel like if you don't get it by now, it's because you're not trying to get it.
But I think you said a key word in there, and it's a key word of a discussion that I've had with an 80-some-year-old member of my family who grew up in Georgia and lived through the civil rights there. She has always contended to me that she feels like Black Lives Matter would be more effective if it said Black Lives Matter too, not just Black Lives Matter.
Sure, I'm not going to disagree with you.
And the reason I said that is just because you said, Black Lives Matter too. Like, you're adding the in addition to, not saying that it is the only. And so that's why I think that one word, the syntax of that, just adds that extra perspective that it is in addition to and not only. Now, it shouldn't have to be clarified exactly for that, but again, it is what it is. But let's But again, we can move on to some other.
Yeah, let's move on to something else.
Okay, yeah. So the NBA is going to Orlando.
Thank God.
We don't know exactly where the WNBA is going yet. There are some talks about them either going to IMG Academy in Tampa area, which would be the state of Florida, or MGM area in Vegas. I look at it as, being that the WNBA has 12 teams, I look at it as hosting a extended conference tournament. I think 12 teams is the perfect amount of teams that you can have play on one site. It's kind of like having a conference play on one site. And I don't see how it wouldn't work with the proper protocols and the proper safety. It just seems like it should work. It's a tournament, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know how many weeks, but let's just say a 2 or 3 month tournament. That's what it should look like.
I think as we go further, we learn more about, the virus, and also as obviously it's still a scary thing and people are still losing their lives, but I feel like a little bit less of the unknown factor is there at this point. We've been living with this for about 4 or 5 months. So we kind of, know what to do. We know what proper precautions to take. I think they can pull it off. I do. I also think that it's imperative that they pull it off because I think that this could be a landmark season for the league. You get to the point where you finally have super teams. There was a lot of movement within the league. And I think that draws excitement. Like, it was the first time, at least that I remember, when, like, WNBA free agency was a thing. Like, a lot of people switched teams. And free agency, to me, I think, brings excitement because you just don't know, you know.
It was essentially the first time it was a thing, because pretty much before now, they always had the option to essentially franchise a player.
Yeah.
You could core a player and, like, yeah, you're not going to turn down more money. So you kind of just have to stay there unless you force your way out, like we saw Liz and Skylar do.
Yeah.
Other than that, there was not much, or Shanae, there was not much free agency there was no free agency in the WNBA. So with their new CBA, the eyes on it, and then also we are, as a country, people are clamoring for sports. Like, they want
entertainment in general.
Right. So
yeah.
The fact that the WNBA draft was the second highest rated draft they ever had, and it got great ratings, and a lot of people.
It was actually a great draft too. Like,
yeah,
it was like
a lot of people enjoyed it.
Like in general, I think it was a great draft. I think they pulled it off great. I think they kind of set the mold. You know, the NFL draft came after that, and they kind of even used the mold that the WNBA used. I actually wouldn't mind if the draft was like that forever. I thought it was super dope. You know, seeing people with their families, seeing them, you know, even the way the commissioner announced it, and then having, you know, the people zoom in or whatever thing they use to talk to them. I thought it was super dope, personally.
Well, I'd like to see it be a combination where, you know how you still get that first round where they get to be there in person, but then the second and third round, maybe you could do the Zoom for them.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a combination of it.
Fair.
But the thing about it is, so they had this great draft, but then there's no training camp. And then you have to cut players because it's time for people to get paid. So people had to get their first paycheck. So they couldn't carry more than 12 players, and some teams are down to 11 on their roster. And they had to get to the salary cap. So a lot of players didn't even get the opportunity to show themselves in a training camp, which is very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. I think a lot of talent probably went by the wayside this year because of the virus and, you know, because they didn't have a training camp. But again, like I said, I think it's very important that they play this season. Again, I think that they were building momentum off last year. I think the way the finals were incredibly exciting. I think Della Don having the season that she had brought excitement to the league. I think the Mystics as a whole brought excitement to the league, playing the way that they play. And I'm interested to see if the WNBA adapts some of that style. You know, people always copy the winner. Obviously, threes are exciting. They score more points. The games, you know, at least look higher scoring. And again, it's women's basketball. Like, even the tallest players are about 6'5", 6'6". We've said this many times, everybody should be shooting threes. So if they can build off what they did last year, especially, I mean, even the Vegas-Chicago game that they had, one of the craziest endings I think I've ever seen in my life. Right. Literally, like, I think that they were building momentum. And if they didn't play this season, I think it would be a catastrophe, because I thought that this season had the potential to be one of the best in league history, if not the best in league history.
Yeah, I don't see how they don't play or don't start to play. My concern is, and this is the same for the NBA or MLS or NHL or whoever is starting up these leagues again, even MLB. What do they do? And I don't want to say if, but if I put all of those leagues together, what do one of those leagues do when a player tests positive for coronavirus?
I mean, I think
because if you talk about all them leagues, it's going to be pretty much impossible for someone not related to those leagues to test positive.
I think
last time they shut down.
I mean, I think you just quarantine the player. Again, I think that we know more about it. You know, we know that it's not necessarily a death sentence off top if you get it. We're talking about young and healthy athletes, you know, so you hope that even if they did get it, that they could survive it and be okay, and, you know, it wouldn't have any long-term effects. I think, number one, you educate them about how to keep their immune systems healthy, number one. You know, I know vitamin D is a huge thing. They say, like, a lot of the people who get it or pass away from it are vitamin D deficient. So, you know, make sure everybody is on a regimen where they get, you know, some good vitamin D. Take vitamin D pills. Also, again, I think we're at the place where you can quarantine the player. As long as it's not a situation in which an entire team gets it, then that's when it's bad. If it's like one player or two players and maybe a staff member, you just quarantine, you know, that member or that player, and you go about your business and, you know, hope that everybody else is okay. And as long as they have the testing for it, I think testing is probably the biggest part. Like how often can you get tested? How many tests can you get? Do you have to hire a private company? Can you go through the state? I think that'll probably be the biggest hurdle for all leagues, personally, I think.
The great thing for the WNBA, again, is that they are 12 teams. So
Yeah,
they are
12
half
teams.
the size of any other league that's about to start up. If the
It's
NBA
true.
is talking about starting with 22, that's essentially double the size. Major League Baseball is 30 teams. Everybody would play. MLS, in their tournament, everybody's supposed to play. I believe they have 20-some teams now. So they're just so much smaller. So that should lower the risk of it exponentially.
You know,
And
like
got a lot of educated players too. I mean, these players are not. I don't think they are the type of women to be risky.
yeah.
Most of their players in the WNBA, if you are an American in the WNBA, like 99% of them are 4-year college graduates. I mean, these are educated women. They are aware, and they've had 10 to 12 weeks to be aware of what's going on.
I think they'll be okay. Even shout out Sydney Weiss. She caught the virus. She survived it. I think even Liz Cambay said that she suspected she had it back in January before it kind of really blew up.
She did say that.
I think that they'll be okay.
Okay.
If this was 3 months ago, I would be a little bit more weary of it. But at least just knowing what we know about the virus now, where it doesn't seem as much of a death sentence. Granted, we don't know everything about it still. It's still something that's new. But it doesn't seem like it's as much of a death sentence. I feel like us as a country are kind of coming out from behind the rock from it a little bit and coming away from our fear factor a little bit. Things are starting to open up, even with the protests. The fact that many, like 3 weeks ago, that many people would have never gathered in a space, so they would have been too scared. I think that, even with things like that, with so many people gathering in, one space, I think it takes a little bit of the fear away from, coronavirus. And I think they'll be okay. I honestly do. Somebody may get sick. That's definitely a possibility, but you just, hope that it's not a full team. Quarantine that player, give them the right medication, nurse them back to health, and continue with the season. I think they'll be okay. I think that but I think that they have to play basketball this season again. I think it's too much on the line, and you don't want to risk the momentum that you've built, having the great year that you had last year. You have to play this season somehow.
Okay. Well, if you talk about playing the WNBA season, so they already had a month break built in.
Yeah.
In the summer. They'll probably have to have a similar month break next year if they want their players to play in the 2021 Olympics. A lot of their players are already signing for overseas, which will begin October-ish, November-ish. They're already signing to play like the next year because, they're still making the bulk of their money overseas.
Yeah.
Even with the new contracts, they're still going to make more money over there. Like the higher paid players that are, making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, like a select few. So with that in mind, I would look for a condensed season.
How many games is condensed to you?
I think if you are able to play at least half the season, if you can play
16?
If you can play 16 to 20, I think that's enough to get a playoffs going.
You got to get to at least 24, in my opinion. 24.
Okay.
16 is that's a little bit.
Well, the good thing about it is if they're all in one place, you don't have to travel. So, because that's one of the things about the WNBA, especially the way they travel commercially for the most part, they have to build in time to go from LA to New York and Phoenix to New York and Indiana to Seattle and all of these different places. So if they're all in one place, then you can play 3 or 4 games a week easily. So you're right. You can play 24.
What is June 4th right now? Let's say the NBA want to start up July 31st. Maybe you could start around the same time. Mm-hmm. You said overseas starts in November. I mean, sometimes they was taking flights the next week to go overseas anyway.
Right.
So maybe you could, I would say play games every day. Maybe not that team would play every day, but again, like I said, if you traveling is not as big of a deal.
There's no travel. There's no travel.
No travel.
Bus travel.
So play throughout August, throughout September. October, get your little playoffs going and hope that you're done maybe by October 20th, October
Okay.
15th, something like that.
If you adopt a summer league type schedule where, like you said, you play every day, not necessarily, and your team gets like every third or fourth day off, and then you could just mill through the games. You get a standings, you get a separation between top teams and lower tier teams. Then you should be okay. Yeah, okay. I can see 24 then.
I mean, you wouldn't have much practice time in between, but figure it out.
Right. Well, mentioning no practice time, then I think that could help certain teams, maybe like the Sparks. So they have the final 12 roster. They got 5 new players, no Maria Vadiva, but pretty much everybody on the Sparks is a veteran. The youngest player on the Sparks will be in her second year. Christine, that they got from Dallas, Christine Inigwe, who they got from Dallas, who came from Connecticut, the one that was in the
infamous brawl.
No, the infamous runaway. She didn't fight.
Facts. She
ain't fight.
Let me relax.
She ain't want
infamous
that smoke.
Runaway.
But you know what? Her and Brittany Griner are cool now. Okay. I saw that they have worked out during the off season, met up and everything like that. So there's no beef between them. Kind of just like Liz and Kalani. You know, they all squash these.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
it's not long term. This is not real.
Yeah, it's not real beef. It's like all in the spirit of competition. They don't hate each other.
But mentioning the Sparks 12 and that everybody essentially is 3 years or more experience, and then half the team is like, 7-8 years experience. I feel like a team like that, if they can come together in a conference tournament style situation, they should have an advantage over some of these other teams. But they got to lock in. Like, they got to lock in and they got to believe from the beginning, and there can't be any division. And whatever this is or not is between Derek Fisher and Candace Parker, that's got to be squashed before day one. That's got to be squashed day 0. That cannot be an issue.
I think it's fine, honestly. Shout out Candace, but I think that Candace is – I think she's – how can I say this? I think she knows. Like, she wasn't playing her best. She wasn't playing her best. We sat here on the podcast before the game, and I said Sinead needs to take a lot of Candace's minutes. Mm-hmm. That's what happened. I think she can look and realize that outside of game 1, she didn't play her best. Derek was doing his best to win a basketball game. Like, I'm trying to win a game. I'm not trying to protect nobody's emotions. I'm trying to win a game. And also, it's 8 months later. Like, yeah. I don't think that matters. But this actually probably almost a year later by that time. Like, I don't think anybody is.
She's an emotional person. Let me ask this question then before we get back to the roster. This is a roster question. Who does Pavy think is the best player on the Sparks?
Look at Nneka.
Okay.
Nneka.
Who do you think is the most valuable player on the Sparks?
I think it'll be a toss-up match between Chelsea and Christy. I think Christy is the best perimeter scorer. But I think that Chelsea is – see, they just like they the fact that those two can ISO the way that they could both ISO and their footwork is both incredible, I think it'll be switched off between Chelsea and Christy depending on the night and, like, depending on the matchup. I don't think too many teams have guards that can guard both of them.
Now, if you ask me those questions, and when I say best, I guess – and let me say this too. So when I say best, I guess I meant most talented. Would you still say Nneka?
Still say Nneka.
Okay. I would still say Candace Parker because of her versatility. At this stage, I would still say Candace Parker is the best player on the team because I think that Candace Parker is not as flashy, but I think she is a better passer than Chelsea Gray because she has a lot more height to her and a lot more range, and that just adds a lot more dexterity and roundness to her passing. Like, her passes can go just a lot more places than Chelsea Gray. But most valuable, I would say Nneka.
See, the reason why
I wouldn't answer Chelsea in either one of those.
That's fair.
But if you ask Derek Fisher, he probably would say Chelsea is the most valuable player. And he might even say she's the best player.
See, the reason why I would say Nneka is the best player because I think that, yes, offensively, because Candace's versatility, I think, she has something to say for Nneka because I think Nneka is a better she's better at scoring the way she scores right now than Candace is.
Mm-hmm.
But defensively, I think Nneka is far and away the best defensive player on this team. And when I do best, I group it all in. Without far and away, I think TRP is up there. But I think that Nneka, to me, I think Nneka should have been Defensive Player of the Year or at least should have got some votes for it.
I think Nneka is the most efficient by far. I think that Nneka has, between her and Candace, even though Nneka's younger, but I think that her game, the way Nneka plays, has the most longevity to her game. I think that between Nneka and Candace, I think when Nneka is Candace's age, Nneka will still be, you'll still be saying like, man, she can still play 4 or 5 years. Because I look at the way that has focused on her health and her eating habits and the different things she's doing. She just seems like she's on just a totally different level when it comes to health and longevity and all of that. So I just feel like that she's the most valuable. But
the way she plays too is not.
But that's the thing. The Sparks have so many players, and there's not a wrong answer who's the best player. You could say, like realistically, you could either say Nneka, Candace, or Chelsea. And you could say your point, I say my point, and then we just have to squash it. Most valuable, you could say about 4. You could say the most valuable, honestly, will be Christy because she'll be the difference.
I agree.
She'll be the person they didn't have last year.
I agree.
She'll be the person that can take pressure off Chelsea Gray when Chelsea didn't have anybody to carry the backcourt load and she just got trapped and there wasn't.
I also think that Derek kept calling over screens. I'm like, you should just let her ISO one-on-one, just stop calling the screen over and getting a trap. But that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. But yes, you're correct. You probably couldn't have trapped her if you had somebody else like Christy on the court who could also take advantage of you one-on-one and also shoot the ball if need be.
So I don't know. I think one other thing that we learned from TRP's conversation is she said that the players have their own Zoom meeting once a week and they have their own group chats. So if these players, regardless of how anybody on the team feels about a coach or a general manager or an organization, if these 12 players decide that they are going to be one and they don't care about egos aside and they just want to win a championship, then they can be successful.
Also,
because they all know how to play basketball. You don't have to tell me that you have to tell Candace Parker how to play basketball. Yeah, you can point out things to her, but you're not teaching Candace Parker how to play basketball anymore.
Also, obviously, I don't know if we'll be there to see it firsthand and, close hand and close up because it'll be in Florida. But they did get rid of Penny. Players may have felt the way that they felt about Penny. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see the atmosphere. Is it a freer atmosphere? Mm-hmm. Do they feel a little bit more inclined to make mistakes, but same way inclined to make mistakes, they feel freer?
Yeah, because a lot of that angst they felt could have seemed like it was directed at Derek Fisher, but it could have really been Penny. It could have really been at that other voice that's saying, do this, do that, do this. You're not my coach.
Yeah, so maybe they come back a little bit.
In the league in 20 years,
so maybe they come back a little bit freer. Like I would be very interested to see. Granted, we won't see firsthand close up a lot of times, obviously, because we won't be. I mean, I don't know, but we probably won't be there. But I'm very interested to see.
If they decide to go to Vegas, though, I'm down for it.
I'm 1,000% going. I'm so going. I would take a chance to go to Vegas. I will put on my mask. I will put on my gloves, and I will 1,000% go to Vegas and cover them games. On everything else, I will put on my mask and my gloves, and I will definitely be in Vegas. Put on my mask, gloves, say a prayer, and I will 1,000% be in Vegas. Bring me a whole bunch of vitamin D pills. Let's go.
I think that the idea of being able to use private property is probably best, though. Because if the NBA and the WNBA are, brother and sister leagues. They kind of share league offices and things like that. They share modeling and different things like that. If they say, oh, we're going to do Disney, if the WNBA is not going to Disney as well, going to an academy that is private property that is expansive is kind of the same thing.
My thing is, I also think that it's my theory. I think that these games will have fans at them. I don't think it'll be many. I think it'll be very small capacity. I don't think it'll be full, but I think that these games will have some element of fans in them. I do.
I don't know. I think it's possible to do them without fans because as long as I lived in Orlando, when they had Orlando Summer League, it was media and personnel only. If you put enough media and personnel in there in a small gym, you'll feel like you got people.
Yes, and I think that that's also a possibility as well. Like,
because if it's going to Disney, ESPN owns Disney.
They're gonna be there.
Or Disney owns ESPN, Disney owns ABC. They're gonna be there.
Yes, but
it's not gonna be closed gyms with nobody in there.
Of course. But my thing also is that I think that would depend on how big the gym is. I don't know how big the gym is. I have no idea, but I think that you can fit. Depending on how big the gym is. Again, I have no idea how big the gym is.
I can tell you, Disney has gyms that can seat anywhere from like 1,000, 1,500, all the way up to about 6,500 to 8,000. 6,500 to 8,000 is their main gym.
If you could fit 8,000 there, then I think that you could maybe get.
But that's like side to side. But so go ahead. 500.
I think you can maybe get 500 people in there. Now I don't know what those tickets would cost, but I think you can maybe get 500 to like 1,000 people in there. You maybe put like two seats of distance between everybody, unless they came together. Put 2 seats of distance between everybody.
What's the point of that when you could easily have 500 personnel from the NBA and other teams because you're going to want to scout the other games. So you're going to have
I think that you can do
however
both.
many players from whoever.
I think that you can do both and just separate it. I mean, if you have a whole, 8,000 seat arena to yourself,
500 people in there is going to be worth it revenue wise for the risk. Like they're not making any money from it.
That's fair. I won't argue with you.
Like if you're not, that's why you have fans at a stadium because you make money from it. Some leagues make more, like Major League Baseball allegedly makes like 40% from fans in the stadium.
I think the NBA does too. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw things said they make 40%,
maybe
50%
them as well. But the NFL is closer to 20%. They make so much money on TV that's why the NFL was able to do blackouts for the longest.
I mean, I'm not.
They still do blackouts.
I'm not gonna argue with you. I just said this because I saw a tweet from it was Florida's governor.
Ron DeSantis.
Well, not from the governor, but somebody said that the governor said that they're going to try to have fans, or that he anticipates fans being able to be at the game or something like that. So
he's willing to do it. He's willing to do it. He is a conservative Republican governor he was a member of Congress before he became governor, and he has an endorsement from President Trump, not to get political, but just say that to say that he'd
be willing to do it.
He's willing to do it, and he's willing to be almost, honestly, I have to use the word liberal. He's willing to be more liberal with people being in public spaces, even though he's a conservative.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so, because that's business for them. Like Florida is a tourist economy.
Tourist economy.
So, I mean, they got Universal that's going to open up soon. They have SeaWorld. They have Disney, which has like multiple parks. It's got like 4 or 5 parks.
Miami, people always come
Busch Gardens.
Fort Lauderdale, Daytona Beach.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a tourist economy, and this is tourist season. And so they're going to be willing to do what they have to do to survive. Like everybody is going to have to come out of this with some level of budget cuts.
Agreed.
But if you can limit that by figuring out how to open up your economy more than others and make money off of it, you'll be a little better off economically.
Also, I think the WNBA has to play this year because I don't know what their TV deal says, but I'm sure they have to play a certain amount of games probably to get the TV money. So I think that they have to figure out a way to play basketball this season. They cannot let this season go by the wayside.
If the NBA just decided they're going to play,
they're going to play.
WNBA is going to figure out they're going to play. They're not going to tell a league that is smaller with less people that they can't play.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of Where are you going to play?
Before, I was unsure, but then once the NBA talks revved up, and also kind of once I learned more and more and more about coronavirus, not saying it's not a threat, because I do think it's still a huge, serious threat, and we should all protect ourselves, but it's not something where you have to, like, lock yourself in the house and hide away forever. Mm-hmm. You can move around, you can do things as long as you do them smartly. Mm-hmm. You know, don't be out now like it doesn't exist. As long as you can take the proper precautions, you can make it happen. So I think they'll be able to make it happen.
Can I ask you this question?
What's up?
And I'm asking this for the Sparks fans that listen to the Spark Report. Who do you think the Sparks will miss the most in the 2020 season of players that are no longer here? And I'll go Maria Vadeeva, Elena Beard, Alexis Jones, Kalani Brown, and I feel like I'm missing one more. That's Marina Mabry.
I'm gonna go Elena. Just from leadership purposes. I think that she's a veteran. She's also like another coach out there. I think she's somebody that, when things are going a certain way, she can pull people. Like, even if she's not playing, she can still pull people to the side and be like, hey, do this. And I think that, anytime somebody has played 14, 15 years, two-time Defensive Player of the Year, is also even when she was younger, be the scorer that, she once was.
Right, 20-point scorer.
Yeah, I think that you missed that. Like, you can never put a price on someone's mind. And I think that she would probably be the one that you miss most because, again, like basketball minds like that just don't grow on trees. And, when you lose her, you lose a lot of basketball knowledge. So I agree. So I'm going to say Elena Beard is the one that they'll miss most.
Yeah, I agree. I used to call her a master basketball player. So to not have her is going to be important. But I think that it's also important to note that Simone Augustus says that that's the role she wants to fill.
Great.
She wants to be that voice. She wants to be that vet. And she says that she has experience doing that, being that she came off the bench for Team USA. And so she was the one saying, oh, I see this, I see that, do this, do that. So
great.
I think that's a great thing about having her. I mean, they have so many players. And if you're going to be playing more frequently, then there's no excuse to not have a larger rotation, and for it to depend on the day and the team you're playing. So everybody should be able to get playing time, significant playing time throughout this season. Yes, if they get to the point in the playoffs, you got to cut it down and get to, who is the core, who are the best 6-7 players on the team, and ride them out and win this championship. But everybody is going to be able to play, from best player to the end of the bench.
Yeah, Derek has another year of some hard decisions to make. But again, it's never I think these are the decisions the hard decisions that you want to make. Mm-hmm. You don't want it to be a situation in which you're devoid of talent and you're trying to figure out who can play. I think on this roster you have 12 ladies who are all very capable of playing basketball, can play basketball at a very high level, and could get playing time on any team in the league. I don't think you have anybody on this roster that couldn't play anywhere else.
And you got a clear 10 of them who could start. The only two people who I see who are not clear-cut WNBA starters on somebody's team right now is Marie Gulich, who is in her own right a two-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Pac-12, and you can't put a price on defense. And then Christine Anigwe, who is an all-ACC player who, again, is another defensive anchor but with a elite level of athleticism.
Agreed. So, I don't know if Simone can start at this point in time in her career, but
she started last year for the Lynx.
Did she start the whole season? Because I feel like she was coming off the bench.
Now, when I say start, I don't mean start and play 35 minutes a game.
Okay, you mean that's fair.
You could start.
You could start and play 15 minutes. That's fair.
Yeah, you could just start her just because you can
start and play bench minutes. That guy.
Yeah, you can start and just be a part of the starting lineup.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you playing. That's fair.
But even if you take her out, there's 9.
That's fair. Yeah. But again,
know for sure who could start and play 30 minutes a game.
Again, those are good problems to have. Mm-hmm. At least you have an issue in which you're devoid of talent, or even like last year in which you had some rookies on the end of the bench. You had Maria, you had Kalani, who I love, and I'm happy that Kalani gets to go to Atlanta and get some playing time. I think that she'll do great things in Atlanta. I also think Marina will be able to play more in Dallas, so shout out to her.
Alexis Jones even made the Dream final roster.
Exactly. So blessings to all of them. I think that all of them will benefit from having more playing time. But I think that in the Sparks case, they're in a situation in which you got a lot of older players. You know, you don't have too much time left with Candace. Simone doesn't have too much time. I think even NECA is trending towards 30 years old. Christy is older. You want to win right now. And I think that they made the right decisions and put together the right roster to be able to win right now.
And you mentioned Christy Tolliver. And so we were talking about what the team loses from Elena Beard. You automatically gaining that from Christy Tolliver.
Right.
And you're gaining it from somebody who is going to be making those suggestions on the fly on the court. Like this is not somebody yelling from the bench or talking to you in timeouts. Like she's seeing it firsthand.
Yeah.
And yes, she's not going to be the coach and she's not going to be telling people what to do, but the fact that she's out there experiencing it with you in real time, that's different. And that's something that they didn't have last year. They didn't have Elena Beard for 30-some games experiencing and seeing what she saw in real time and translating it. It was being translated after the fact, or it was being translated in one-on-one conversations, or it was being translated at practice when Elena would actually practice.
Yeah, and just from watching what I've watched about the triangle offense, which I'm sure Derek is going to run, continue to run some semblance of the triangle, maybe not on the full-on, whole triangle, but he'll run some semblance of it. Basically, it's read and react. So you have a lot of ladies who have very high basketball IQs, and also a season like this in which I don't anticipate there being much playing time, but not playing time, practice time.
Right.
I think that the fact that you have players, we can kind of roll the ball out and be like, all right, y'all figure it out. I don't think he has to coach that much. Like, you don't have to tell Christy, Candace, NECA, Chelsea, Shanae, Simone. You don't have to tell these players what to do. Like, they've all been in the league for a while. They've all had success on their own. They'll be okay. They know how to just go out there and play basketball. So I think that this team will benefit from that, especially in a season in which I don't anticipate you having much practice time.
Can I admit something?
What's
and
up?
Maybe other Sparks fans or Sparks people who are paying attention to the team see this. At first, I kind of believed Derek Fisher that he wasn't going to do triangle offense stuff. And I just thought that they was just playing some sort of motion offense, and it just didn't seem like there were plays that the players were just doing whatever. That's how it looked at first from my perspective.
Yeah.
But, hearing, people like Shanae talk about like, oh yeah, these are things that I'm working on, for the triangle offense. Like, now that I have it in my mind, like I see it.
Yeah, and even with, going back and even when they did the Last Dance documentary, one thing I did do, my favorite part about it actually wasn't even in the documentary, when they had like Phil Jackson and Steve Kerr, they had Dennis Rodman all breaking down a triangle. So even when I'm watching the games now, I can just see the triangles. I think the thing about the triangle is like once you realize what it is, and you can look on the court and literally just see the triangles and see, how it goes. And
now
again,
looking back, I see it in the Sparks highlights. Like it's
that's triangle. It's a triangle. It's a triangle.
But maybe that's because of my vantage point watching at one end of the court and not being up like a TV camera and not seeing it from like that sideline view. We see it from the end of the basket.
Yeah, the basket, which is, and then also, you kind of got the basket blocking, one like line of view, so you can't you can't look down on it. You kind of like looking straight at it, which it could be.
Plus, we're not used to a triangle offense being like a true point guard dominated offense with Chelsea Gray either. Like she was still the primary ball handler. Yeah,
but see, I don't think it was a Chelsea Gray dominated offense, in my opinion. I think that her and Candace kind of shared the ball handling responsibility.
Candace didn't play half the games. It was a Chelsea Gray dominated offense.
But I'm saying like when Candace did play, I don't think it was dominated by Chelsea Gray. I think Chelsea Gray, when Candace did play, played as much off ball as she did on ball.
Yeah, because I think that was because Chelsea respects and admires Candace enough where she still defers to her.
No, I just think that also Chelsea.
I think that was deference.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that Chelsea, you have to utilize her scoring ability. And I think that putting her off ball, letting her, come and get gives, letting her come off a screen. It puts her in different situations with a mentality to score the ball instead of I'm coming down court, let me look for everybody else and then figure it out. I think you also have to utilize her as a scorer. And I think that's the point about, Christy and Chelsea being in the backcourt that kind of excites me is the fact that you have two combo guards. So you can kind of play for lack of better examples, a Russ and Harden type style in which, either one of them can be threats. You can use kind of either one of them off ball, and whoever gets
a WNBA example of that is the Connecticut Sun.
Yeah, exactly.
Thomas and Williams.
What they had last year, at least.
Yeah, Thomas and Williams.
Yeah, whereas like both of them, you can use them off ball, on ball. Both of them can be, scoring threats. You can kind of use them however you want to use them. That's what kind of excites me about that.
Or like the Mystics, Natasha Cloud and Chrissy Tolliver.
Yeah.
Like Natasha Cloud is the point guard, and she's the all-time assist leader for the Mystics, but Christy Tolliver is a point guard in her own right. Always been one, always will be. Just because she can score doesn't mean she's not a point.
Agreed.
Like she pretty much got to be a point because she's 5'7", and she's
5'7"?
not. Yeah.
She's 5'7". That's crazy.
No, she's 5'7", and she's not like somebody who can essentially.
My height, that is crazy.
Yeah, you'll see one day. But so she's 5'7", but she's not a person who can essentially have the athleticism to dunk like Raquana Williams.
Yeah.
Like Raquana 5'7" too. But
she is 5'7". Actually, she's 6'6", I think. I think she's actually shorter than me.
Yeah, she probably is.
I think she's actually shorter than me.
Most people, even in the WNBA, there are some that are their exact listed height, but most of them are probably
an inch shorter, or an inch or two shorter.
Three quarters to an inch shorter.
Yeah.
Like between you and me, Shanae is like 6'2". She's not really 6'4". She's listed as 6'3" or 6'4".
Yeah, she's
now Candace Parker.
She's
6'4".
Yeah,
like Candace Parker is her height.
Yeah.
NECA is listed at
6'2". She's probably about 6'1".
Yeah, she's about 6'1". But once you got the shoes on, you're there the height they say.
Yeah, exactly.
And they do that in the NBA all the time. So
exactly.
I don't say that to disrespect anybody's listed height or anything like that. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. I'm disappointed that there is no Maria Vadeeva this year, but I don't think she was going to play.
Best for her. Best for her. I'd rather her not join the team this year if she is going to get playing time. I think that the only thing stopping her from becoming a player that she's eventually going to be one day in this league is playing time. And if she isn't going to get the playing time this season, then I'd rather, her just sit down and chill, personally, in my opinion.
Give her a break. And another thing it does for the Sparks strategically? It delays her being paid a higher salary for another year. So she's not paid this year.
I mean, that's unfortunate for her, but yes.
Yeah, but she's paid in Russia. Okay, yeah. She's the top Russian basketball player in the whole country, on the top team with Brittany Griner and John Quill and all those people. They are paying her money. All right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much they paid her, but Maria Vadeeva ain't hurt. And realistically, $60,000, like I don't know how much difference that was going to make.
That's fair. I mean, but I would still take $6,000 at any point in time. That I could take $6,000. But yes, you're correct.
But the fact
it's not going to be a yes.
But the fact that she's basically been playing pro since she was 15 or 16 year round, she's been in the WNBA since she was 18 or 19 year round. Now she finally gets to take a break. I think that this can give longevity to her career because she was already wearing down. Before she even came back, she had a knee injury and they were out. And she was saying, I don't know how long she's going to be out. So she's a long-term piece for this team. She's close with NECA. Like, that's why her and NECA's locker were together. I never really thought about it. But her and NECA played together in Russia just like Candace and Maria played together.
Makes sense.
So, like, that's a close person to her. Obviously, we know she's cool with Sydney Weiss. Sydney Weiss just got a new contract. Like, Maria Vadeeva is not going anywhere. She's a piece of the Sparks. And as long as she's willing to play in the WNBA, I feel like the Sparks will be willing to have her. She's still like 22. It's still like drafting her out of college. You got to think about it like that. She's been in the league for – this would have been her
3
third.
years, I think, right? Yeah, 3.
Right. This would have been her third year. I appreciate you talking, Pav. We got a lot of stuff to look forward to.
Man.
Let's do another one when they decide where they're going to play.
Yes,
We
yes.
can kind of continue to talk about this roster. This is a roster that is constantly, I won't say in development, but we can constantly talk about the different ways they're going to use it. I didn't even mention my Syracuse grad, Brittany Sykes. I mean, they got so many players. We'll have to talk about that next time. Appreciate everybody listening to the Spark Report. John W. Davis for Pavy. All right, y'all. Peace.